Darkness. A low hum vibrated through the cold metal floor, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath Adrian Wolf's sprawled form. His head pounded and his limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. A sharp, acrid scent filled his nostrils, sterilized air laced with something metallic. He pried his eyes open, but the dim lighting cast the world in shifting shadows. He wasn't alone. A groan to his right. Then a cough rough and strained. Wolf turned his head, the motion sluggish, to see a figure pushing up on unsteady arms. Sergeant Elias Cade. A man built for war, scarred knuckles, a thick jaw, eyes that rarely showed fear. His breathing was ragged, but his gaze sharpened as he took in their surroundings. The room, no cell, was vast, the walls a seamless blend of black metal with no visible seams or exits. The air had a sterile chill, making the hairs on Wolf's arms rise. Across from him, Lieutenant Marcus Voss sat slumped against the wall, rubbing his temples. Jensen Rourke and Saul Mercer were nearby, Mercer still unconscious. "Everyone up," Wolf said, voice hoarse but commanding. Cade grunted, getting to his feet. "Where the hell are we?" Voss exhaled slowly. "Captured." Rourke let out a humorless chuckle. "No shit. But by who?" Before anyone could answer, a section of the wall hissed and slid apart. A figure entered, tall, reptilian, armored in obsidian plates that flexed like living metal. Eyes like slits of molten gold surveyed them with a cold detachment. Behind it, two more of its kind stood at attention, rifles in hand. The lead creature spoke, its voice a low, guttural snarl. "You will rise." No one moved. The creature took a step forward. Rise. Wolf motioned and his team obeyed, bodies tense but ready. Cade rolled his shoulders, the flecks of muscle barely concealed by the tattered remains of his uniform. Mercer stirred, groaning as he pushed himself upright. The alien studied them. "You are aboard a vessel of the Xarith Dominion. You are prisoners." No preamble, no explanation. Just fact. Voss's jaw tightened. "For how long?" The Xarith bared its fangs. "Until you break." The words hung in the air like a challenge. They were marched through a series of corridors, the architecture oppressive, walls that pulsed faintly as if the ship itself were alive. Other cells lined the path, filled with gaunt, defeated prisoners, some human, most not. None met their gaze. They had been here too long. They had given up, Not us, Wolf thought. Not ever. They reached a vast chamber, a pit sunk into the floor. The air smelled of blood and sweat. Dozens of Xarith stood around its edges, some armored, others in ceremonial robes. At the center, two beings fought, a hulking alien with jagged tusks against a smaller, wiry creature. It wasn't a contest. The smaller one died within moments, its throat crushed beneath a powerful grip. The crowd roared in approval. Wolf understood immediately. A test. A spectacle. The Xarith commander, a figure taller than the rest, with obsidian scales laced with streaks of gold, descended into the pit. His voice was a blade across stone. "We have taken your kind before. Some we keep as labor. Others for sport. You will fight. Or?" Wolf asked. The commander smiled, a horrible thing with too many teeth. "Or you will die on your knees." The answer was clear. The fight was inevitable. Wolf turned, locking eyes with Cade. A silent conversation passed between them. "Make an impression." Cade stepped forward. "I'll play." The crowd hissed, a ripple of excitement passing through them. A massive Xarith warrior dropped into the pit, claws flexing. Its armor shifted with its movements, adapting to its body like a second skin. Cade rolled his shoulders, loosening up, eyes never leaving the beast. A horn sounded. The Xarith lunged, fast, brutal. But Cade was faster. He dodged left, the creature's claws slicing the air where his head had been a second before. He pivoted, driving his fist into the alien's ribs. The crack was audible. The Xarith stumbled back, momentarily stunned. The crowd hissed again, this time in disbelief. The alien recovered quickly, launching itself at Cade with renewed aggression. They collided, rolling across the pit floor in a tangle of limbs. The Xarith had strength, but Cade had leverage. He wrenched an arm free and drove his elbow into the thing's throat. It gagged, claws raking against Cade's side. Blood splattered the sand. A final movement, swift, deliberate. Cade got behind it, locked an arm around its neck and twisted. The Xarith collapsed, spasming, then lay still. Silence. Then the roar of the crowd. But it wasn't cheers. It was anger. The commander tilted his head. "Interesting." Cade wiped blood from his mouth and spat onto the corpse. Was that supposed to be hard? The Xarith warriors bristled, hands tightening on their weapons. But the commander merely smiled again. You are not like the others. No, Wolf said, stepping forward. We're not. The commander studied them for a long moment, then nodded to his guards. Return them to their cells. They were herded back through the corridors, but this time the air felt different. The guards walked stiffer, their grips on their weapons a little tighter. Fear. The Xarith didn't feel it often. But they felt it now. As the door to their cell sealed behind them, Voss exhaled. That was risky. Cade smirked. Worked, didn't it? Wolf ignored them, pacing, mind already working. The Xarith think we'll break. That they can play with us, test us. They don't realize they just gave us everything we need. Mercer frowned, rubbing his side. How do you figure? They brought us here to see how tough we are, Wolf said. And they just showed us how they fight. They're bigger. They're stronger. But they're predictable. Voss nodded, catching on. And they assume we're just animals fighting on instinct. They don't know we're already planning. Wolf met his gaze. Exactly. Cade leaned against the wall, a grin spreading. So when do we kill these scaly bastards? Wolf's eyes darkened. Soon. The cell was never truly dark. Faint veins of bioluminescent light pulsed through the walls, casting shifting shadows that stretched and receded like living things. Wolf had been watching those patterns for hours, his mind working through every possible route, every weakness in the Xarith routines. The creatures thought they had contained them, controlled them. They were wrong. Mercer sat cross-legged in the corner, staring at the exposed panel he'd pried loose hours ago. His fingers worked carefully, his face tight with focus. Wires tangled in his lap, some cut, others stripped, the alien circuits unlike anything he'd worked with before. But he was getting closer. Tell me you're ready, Wolf said, voice low. Mercer nodded. One more connection. The power cycle's on a loop. When I trip it, we'll have about 15 seconds before the backup kicks in. 15 seconds is enough, Cade muttered, stretching his arms, rolling his shoulders. Wolf had seen that kind of controlled aggression before. Asterisk, asterisk, a predator before the kill. Asterisk, asterisk. Voss tapped his fingers against his knee, his mind elsewhere. When the power goes, we hit hard. No hesitation. They'll try to reorganize fast. They won't get the chance, Rourke said. Wolf nodded. Mercer, do it. The moment his fingers twisted the final wire, the cell plunged into darkness. The ever-present hum of power died, replaced by silence. For a second nothing happened. Then the metal door hissed, not a slow, controlled release, but an emergency disengagement. Wolf surged forward just as the door slid open. The Xarith guard outside barely had time to react before Cade's fist caved in its throat. The alien choked on its own breath, claws spasming, body crumpling. Wolf grabbed the guard's weapon, a compact plasma rifle with an unfamiliar grip, and turned just as the emergency lights flickered back on. More guards were coming. Rourke was already moving, ripping a blade from the downed Xarith's belt. He threw it, and the blade embedded itself deep into the throat of the next alien rounding the corner. Blood splattered across the wall as the creature collapsed. No time to think. Only to act. Wolf led the charge. The hallway curved ahead, the sound of stamping feet and guttural commands echoing through the vessel. He counted at least 5 more guards converging. Voss yanked a plasma pistol from the corpse at his feet. Move fast. Hit first. They surged forward, Wolf firing the stolen weapon. The shot slammed into a Xarith's chest, sending it staggering. Another alien raised a rifle, but Cade was already on him, ducking low, twisting the barrel aside, then driving a brutal knee into its abdomen. The impact sent the alien sprawling, ribs cracking. The corridor became a battlefield. Mercer kept to the back, hunched over a stolen wrist console, fingers dancing across the unfamiliar interface. Security's locking down the lower decks, he growled. If we're gonna get out, we need control of the main terminal. Where? Wolf demanded. Command level, through the hangar bay. Wolf turned, scanning their path. More guards were coming. No time to hesitate. Then that's where we go. They moved in formation, weaving through the corridors, cutting down any Xarith in their path. They fought like humans always had, asterisk asterisk ruthlessly, efficiently asterisk asterisk. The Xarith were used to order, to rigid formations and overwhelming numbers. They weren't prepared for an enemy that adapted mid-fight, that used their own tactics against them. Every kill was a message, we are not prey. The hallways grew wider as they neared the hangar. Alarm sirens blared. The scent of burning plasma and blood filled the air. They burst into the open expanse of the loading bay, a vast metallic cavern lined with small attack craft and supply crates. Xarith warriors formed a defensive line between them and the next set of doors. Wolf barely had time to register the threat before the first plasma bolt sizzled past his head. "Cover!" he barked, diving behind a stack of crates. The others followed, pressed against the metal as incoming fire scorched the air. "They're dug in," Rourke snarled. "We need to break their line." Wolf scanned the bay. The Xarith held the choke point well, but they weren't considering human creativity. A large fuel canister sat near the barricade. "Mercer," Wolf called. "Can you overload that fuel cell remotely?" Mercer's eyes flicked toward it. He muttered a curse, then knelt, tapping furiously at the stolen console. "Give me 10 seconds. "We don't have 10 seconds. Cade snapped. "Then stall them," Mercer growled. Wolf leaned around the crate, sighting his stolen rifle. He squeezed the trigger. The shot struck a Xarith in the leg, blowing out bone and sinew. The alien shrieked but didn't fall, until Voss put another shot through its skull. "Now Mercer!" Wolf shouted. Mercer's fingers slammed the final key. A shrill whine filled the air. The fuel cell detonated in a burst of fire and concussive force, ripping through the barricade. Xarith bodies tumbled, some disintegrating in the blast, others thrown back in smoking heaps. The surviving ones were staggered, disoriented. That was all the opening Wolf needed. "Go!" They charged, emerging from cover like wolves scenting blood. The Xarith barely had time to react before the first of them fell beneath the human onslaught. Rourke ripped a rifle from an alien's hands and crushed its skull against the wall. Cade moved like a storm, breaking bones, tearing through flesh with savage precision. Wolf was on the commander before the alien could regain its footing. He pressed the muzzle of his stolen rifle against the Xarith's jaw and fired. The head snapped back, the body crumpling lifelessly. Then silence. Only the crackle of fire and the scent of cooked flesh remained. The doors beyond the wreckage stood open, the path to the control center unguarded. Wolf wiped sweat from his brow, blood smeared across his fingers. His men stood beside him, breathing hard, victorious. Voss glanced at the destruction. "They thought they could contain us." "They were wrong," Wolf said. Mercer exhaled sharply, already scanning the alien terminal inside. "Let's finish this." Wolf nodded. This was only the beginning. The control room was silent except for the hum of alien technology and the ragged breathing of the men who had just slaughtered their way to it. The walls pulsed faintly, bioluminescent veins threading through the metal like a living organism. Mercer was already at the main console, fingers flying over the unfamiliar interface, his eyes scanning the shifting alien script. The others stood ready, weapons raised, scanning the entrances for the inevitable retaliation. The Xarith would not let this stand. Wolf moved to Mercer's side, his voice low but urgent. "How much control do we have?" Mercer didn't answer immediately. His jaw was clenched, sweat dripping down his temple as he worked. "They've locked out most of the navigation and comms, but..." His fingers hesitated over a section of the interface, then pressed a sequence of keys. The display flickered, shifting into something that made his eyes widen. "I can reroute their internal defenses. Auto turrets, blast doors, security fields. We could turn this whole place into a goddamn kill box." Wolf exhaled sharply, nodding. "Do it." Mercer's hands moved faster. Outside, the sound of boots against metal rang through the corridors, a rhythmic stampede growing louder. The Xarith reinforcements were closing in. Cade cracked his neck, rolling his shoulders. "They know we're in here." Voss smirked. "Then let's remind them why they fear the dark." The first wave came hard, Xarith warriors in reinforced armor, weapons primed. They pushed through the corridors, but the moment they breached the threshold, Mercer activated the turrets. The walls came alive with rapid-fire plasma rounds, cutting through the aliens in a blinding storm of energy and blood. Screams filled the air. Some warriors managed to push forward, ducking low, using their own fallen as cover. But Rourke and Cade were already moving, ripping through them in brutal close-quarters combat. Rourke slammed a rifle butt into a Xarith's snout, the bone crunching on impact, then finished it with a blade across the throat. Cade caught another by the arm, twisting hard, then drove his elbow through its skull with a sickening crack. The remaining Xarith hesitated. That was their mistake. Wolf fired 2 quick shots, dropping the last of them. The corridor went still, bodies smoldering, broken. He turned to Mercer. "Status?" Mercer wiped sweat from his face, his eyes locked onto the terminal. "Hangar doors are locked down, but I can override. Give me another minute." They didn't have a minute. Another alarm blared, a different tone deeper. Then the overhead lights shifted to an ominous red. Voss's expression darkened. That's not a security alert. Mercer paled. They're venting the lower decks. Purge protocol. They're going to kill everything on this ship rather than let us take it. Wolf's stomach tightened. That was what true predators did. They burned the ground rather than let the enemy stand on it. Not today. He grabbed Mercer's shoulder. Shut it down. I'm trying. His fingers blurred over the controls, frustration evident. The ship lurched, a distant groan rippling through the structure as vents opened across the lower levels. Entire sections were being suffocated, exposed to the void. Hundreds of prisoners, forgotten in their cells, were dying. Rourke slammed a fist against the wall. We need to move. Wolf turned, scanning the chamber. The exit was still clear. They could escape. But the thought sat wrong in his gut. They had come here as prisoners. Now they were conquerors. And they would not leave as anything less. Mercer cursed. I can't stop it, but I can reroute it. Wolf's eyes narrowed. Explain. Mercer's hands hesitated over the interface. I can flip the purge protocol. Instead of venting the cells, I can route it to their command deck. Silence. Then Cade grinned. Poetic. Voss exhaled, shaking his head. They wanted to cleanse their ship? Let them burn in their own fire. Wolf met Mercer's gaze. The younger man swallowed hard, then nodded. He turned back to the console and pressed a final sequence of keys. For a moment nothing happened. Then the lights shifted again, this time to a pulsing amber. The ship shook. Wolf didn't need to see it to know what was happening. Somewhere, on the upper decks, the Xarith commanders were realizing their own oxygen was gone. The purge they had intended for their prisoners was now devouring them instead. Mercer exhaled, voice shaking. It's done. A heavy silence filled the control room. Rourke nodded slowly. Let's get off this ship. The hangar doors hissed open, revealing a wide expanse of alien fighter craft, transport vessels, and the massive main bay leading into the void beyond. But before they could take another step, a sound echoed through the chamber. A slow, deliberate clap. They turned, weapons raised. From the shadows beyond the hangar entrance, a figure emerged, tall, armored in black plates edged in gold, his reptilian face twisted into something between amusement and rage. Overlord Xarith. Unlike the warriors before him, Xarith did not rush to attack. He stood calm, confident, a predator who had spent his life at the top of the chain. Behind him, a dozen elite guards stood motionless, their armor thicker, their weapons heavier. Xarith's voice was a low rumble of thunder. Clever little creatures. But you are still insects in our dominion. Cade scoffed. That why your command deck's running out of air? Xarith's expression barely flickered. Sacrifices are nothing to our kind. If we must burn one ship to ensure your species is erased from existence, then we will. Wolf stepped forward, weapon raised. You lost the moment you underestimated us. Xarith finally smiled. A slow, terrible thing full of teeth. Then prove it. He lunged, faster than anything that size should be capable of. The guards charged, weapons igniting, the final battle erupting in the vastness of the hangar bay. Blades clashed. Gunfire screamed. And the fate of the ship was decided in blood. Xarith moved like a shadow given form. Fast, brutal, and precise. His blade clashed against Wolf's rifle, knocking it aside with sheer force. Wolf barely had time to twist away before a razor-sharp claw tore through the air where his throat had been seconds earlier. He staggered back, leveling his weapon, but Xarith was already coming again. Wolf fired. Xarith dodged, twisting his body in a way that shouldn't have been possible for something so massive. The plasma round grazed his armor, leaving a scorched streak but nothing more. He closed the distance in an instant, swinging his blade in a downward arc. Wolf barely got his rifle up in time. Metal met metal, the shock of the impact rattling his bones. He pivoted, using the momentum to drive his shoulder into the Overlord's ribs, but Xarith barely budged. The Xarith grinned, his golden eyes flashing with predatory delight. You fight well, Xarith rumbled, his voice thick with amusement. But you are still weak. He drove a knee into Wolf's gut, the force sending him skidding backward across the hangar floor. Wolf hit the ground hard, gasping as pain lanced through his ribs. His vision blurred for half a second. A half second too long. Xarith was already on him. The blade came down, aimed for Wolf's heart. Then a gunshot cracked through the air. Xarith jerked to the side, a spray of dark blood bursting from his shoulder. Cade stood atop a pile of dead Xarith warriors, rifle smoking. "Didn't your mother teach you not to play with your food?" Xarith snarled and turned, but Wolf was already moving. Pain be damned, he rolled to his feet and smashed the butt of his rifle into the Xarith's wounded shoulder. Xarith roared, staggering. That was all the opening Wolf needed. He dropped his rifle and lunged, grabbing the fallen Xarith blade from the floor. The weapon was heavier than expected, its edge humming with barely contained energy. Wolf didn't hesitate. He drove it into Xarith's side, twisting hard. Xarith grunted, eyes widening. He swung wildly, trying to throw Wolf off, but Wolf held firm, forcing the blade deeper. "Not so strong now, are you?" Wolf growled through gritted teeth. Xarith bared his teeth. Instead of fear, there was something else in his eyes. Respect. Then he moved. Too fast. His claws raked across Wolf's back, cutting deep. Agony flared, but Wolf didn't let go. He wrenched the blade upward, slicing through muscle, bone, and whatever passed for Xarith organs. Xarith staggered. His breath came in short, ragged bursts. Dark blood poured from his side, pooling at his feet. His legs trembled, but he remained standing, still defiant. He chuckled, a broken, rasping sound. "You are not prey." His body collapsed, the impact shaking the ground. His lifeless golden eyes stared at the ceiling. The overlord of the Xarith Dominion was dead. Wolf barely had time to breathe before a new explosion rocked the hangar. A burning column of fire erupted from the far side, sending bodies flying. Rourke's voice roared over the chaos. "More incoming. We need to go now." Voss was already moving, dragging Mercer toward one of the alien transports. Cade fired a few more rounds into the oncoming wave of reinforcements before turning to Wolf. "Can you walk?" Wolf gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright despite the white-hot pain lancing through his back. "Just get me to the damn ship." They sprinted across the hangar, weaving through wreckage and bodies. The stolen Xarith vessel was sleek, predatory, its boarding ramp already lowering. Voss was in the cockpit, barking commands as Mercer tried to decipher the controls. As Wolf and Cade reached the ramp, a final group of Xarith charged from the smoke, weapons raised. "Go!" Wolf shouted. Cade didn't hesitate. He turned, threw a grenade, then sprinted up the ramp as the blast engulfed the warriors in fire and metal shards. The ship rumbled beneath them, engines roaring to life. Mercer's voice was tight with panic. "I have no idea what half of these controls do, but I think I got the thrusters online." "Then take us up," Wolf grunted, collapsing into the co-pilot's seat. The ship lifted, hangar doors splitting open to reveal the endless void beyond. Below them, alarms screeched and defense turrets swiveled to lock onto them. "Hold on," Mercer muttered, slamming a sequence of keys. The ship lurched, twisting through the hangar bay. Plasma fire streaked past, barely missing the hull. Voss gritted his teeth, gripping the controls. Come on, come on." They burst through the hangar doors, emerging into the vastness of space. The Xarith warship loomed behind them, massive and burning. Pieces of debris drifted away as the damage from their sabotage spread through the structure. Then Mercer's voice came, cold and deadly. "They locked weapons on us." Wolf's heart pounded. They weren't clear yet. A deep vibration rumbled through the ship as the warship's main cannons powered up. And then, a detonation. The warship's upper deck erupted into fire, the entire structure buckling inward as explosions rippled across its hull. The Xarith ship began to break apart, consumed by its own failing systems. Wolf watched as the once mighty vessel collapsed, imploded, then vanished into nothingness, leaving only drifting wreckage. A silence settled over the cabin. Then Cade chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, that's one way to make an exit." Rourke leaned back against the wall, exhaling. "We just took down a Xarith warship." "We did more than that," Voss muttered. His eyes were locked on the display showing intercepted transmissions. That was a flagship. A high-rank vessel. Every Xarith out there just watched their best warriors get slaughtered by humans they thought were weak. Wolf wiped blood from his face. He felt exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open. But the fire in his chest burned hotter than ever. "They underestimated us," he said. His voice was raw but steady. "Now they know the truth." Voss turned, a grim smile on his lips. "And what truth is that?" Wolf stared out at the wreckage. The remains of their captors. The beginning of something greater. That humans don't kneel. A silence followed. Not empty but charged, electric with what came next. They weren't just escapees anymore. They were something new. Something the Xarith would fear until the end of their days. Wolf turned toward the cockpit, voice sharp, unwavering. Set course. We're not done yet.